The subject of today's video will be world peace. How do we actually obtain world peace? And how do we usher in the light of the Atziluth, being the Atzil? With that being said, by the end of this video, may the Holy One, blessed be His glory, be revealed. Let's begin.
These my dollars make it hurt.
In Ha'azinu, in Book 22 of the Zohar, it states, Section 9, the three heads of the Atika. Three heads were imprinted, one inside another, that is, concealed Hokmah inside the skull and one over another, namely the unknown head above the skull. And he explains, one head is concealed Hokmah, which is undisclosed and unopened. This concealed Hokmah is a beginning to every other beginning of other Hokmot. This is the first head from below upwards. The second head is a supernal head, the most obscured Atika Kadisha. The third head that is lofty above everything is the head for every head, a head that is not a head. That is, its being a head indicates it is a beginning of expansion and comprehension, yet this head is entirely incomprehensible, because no one knows, nor is it known, what is in this head. Because it is attached to neither to Hokmah nor to Vunah, it is therefore considered, therefore, now flee to your place. And the living creatures ran and returned, because no comprehension can be applied there. When discussing the beginning or the most primordial aspects of creation, it's written, He declared the end from the beginning. Furthermore, it has been made known to you that the word Bereshis is Berosh, in the head. The head of the concealed Atika Kadisha, which are considered to be three heads, are the secret aspects and blueprint of all existence. I will give a general overview about all of these specifics. Now, all of these mysteries that are being revealed here are being revealed for the first time, openly, and for the first time in specifics in any given place. That being said, you, the viewer, carefully analyze each and every level. Seek to apply the secret of these mysteries to your day-to-day life. And may we begin to see the glory of the divine in all of reality. The three heads of the Atika are identified as the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or. It is the unknowable head, which is the level called the Ein, or the endless light. The restriction, which is the supernal Hokmah, and the heart spark, which is called the skull. Collectively, these are called the three heads of the Atik. Let us enter into their mystery and derive the secrets and reality regarding them, and by doing so, reveal the glory in creation. In the beginning was the endless, and the endless expanded to the boundary of the endless, and there was no end to its boundary. When it arose in his desire that he might have a desire, that he might have a thought or a will, the endless light restricted itself. It restricted itself from all directions precisely in the center, creating a vacancy where there was no vacancy. Now this restriction was from all directions, creating the form and image of a circle. It is precisely in this vacancy that all of the worlds, both higher and lower, would come into existence. Restricting itself precisely into the center, it created both depth and density. What do we derive from this? We learn that at the highest level of existence, in accordance with the second head, at the highest level of existence, everything is revolving. An example, everything is circular. So we find that planets are revolving stars. We do not need to have faith or belief to witness the planets are revolving stars. At the lowest level of existence, it too is the exact same. An example, everything is revolving. So we find that electrons are revolving, protons, neurons, etc. Now, the other things that we can derive from the secret of the restriction are in the following phases. We learned that shortly afterwards, the surrounding endless, which still surrounded, being that there was no end to its boundary, after having restricted itself, created an environment in which existence would come into being, both the higher and lower worlds. This was a necessity so that the endless could both be a part of and separated from the existence itself. When the endless light started to pour into this place, we learn another principle. The surrounding endless poured in, thus taking on the form of a circle, and so we find that light is circular. Not only this, as it descended in the secret of the points, which our sages called this place the world of the Nekud, which means the primordial point. Hokmah is called points, and the points are the secret of the vowels, which are called Nekudim. Thus we find that not only is light circular, but sound is circular as well. So we find that sound vibrations are circular and light is circular. As stated before, the restriction came from all directions and it gathered precisely in the center. It created a vacancy where there was no vacancy. Well, this vacancy creates depth and density. This depth and density causes a conal shape to emerge. We find that, like the rings of a concentric circle, we find that sound emanates in concentric circles and light as well. We find that the light takes on not just a circular shape, but emits conally. And we find that sound emits conally. So just from the very beginning of studying this head, let us analyze what we've learned. Go outside. Do the planets revolve stars? At the smallest level of existence, do electrons revolve protons and neutrons? Do we find that light is circular? Do we find that sound is circular? Do we find that light is conal? And do we find that sound is conal? Let us go into deeper levels. Now, when the light poured in, it poured in the secret of called the Or Hayashar, the straight light. This straight light would form what is called the linear aspect of the Sphirot, or the linear aspect of the tree. So we find that there's a circular aspect to the Sphirot and a linear aspect to the Sphirot. But how do we understand this? We learn from this that at the highest level of existence, everything is circular, an example revolving, an example planets revolving stars. And at the smallest level of existence, everything is circular or revolving, an example electrons revolving, protons and neutrons, etc. And in between the lowest point and the highest point, we find everything is linear. So that everything in creation is a linear aspect, an example, we are linear, composite of revolving aspects, an example, electrons in the secret of atoms, existing within inside of a larger revolving aspect at the highest level, an example, planet revolving a star. And so we find everything is circular on the smallest level and on the highest level and linear in between. We are linear, composite of smaller revolving aspects existing within a larger revolving aspect. Consider this carefully. Now analyze. Are we linear constructs? Are we sitting on a planet revolving a star? And are we composite of atoms with electrons revolving? Now that we've discussed to some depth the second level, let us go into a deeper level. We find that at the highest level and the lowest level is the secret of Lashon HaKodesh, or the 22 letters. We find that it is written that he wrapped himself in light, or is a numerical value of Ein Sof. And so it's written regarding this, Vayer Elohim et Or Ki Tov, that God saw the light that it was good. The light there is called Et HaOr. Thus, the light is called Et, or Aleph Tatav. And what is the secret meaning behind this? The secret to this is that the light is the 22 letters, and therefore when it says he wraps himself in light, it's figuratively speaking to say he wraps himself in the 22 letters, or that which is unknowable wrapped itself in information that it might become knowable. This information, of course, is the Lashon HaKodesh, or the 22 letters. Now, if this is true, and the light at the highest level was the Lashon HaKodesh in a unified state, in a unified singularity, then at the lowest level, if the light was really the 22 letters, we must see evidence of this. And so when we go to the smallest level of existence, an example, the center, we find precisely that this is true. There are 22 pairs of chromosomes, and they correspond directly to the 22 letters of the Lashon HaKodesh. Thus, we find here 22 pairs of chromosomes in conjunction with the 22 letters that, as explained, were gathered precisely in the center. So at the smallest levels of existence, an example, the chromosomes of the DNA, we actually see 22 chromosomes. Now, this of course is called the hard spark. The hard spark is the secret of the 231 gates. It was explained in Sefer Yetzirah and in other places, how he took Aleph and paired him with every letter and every letter with Aleph, etc., and in 231 gates. That is because when you take the 22 letters and combine them with every other letter, you create 231 combinations. The general idea behind this is that it represents the totality of potential. An example, every letter represents a different potentiality, and by combining all of the various potentialities, you create spectrum of possibility. This includes both order and chaos. Therefore, it represents potential. Now, there's another level hidden behind this. That is, in Emek HaMelech, which was a chief disciple of the Arizal, he writes regarding these things that they correspond to the Sefirot. This is hinted at in Sefer Yetzirah, where it says the 231 gates. It says the circle, or Galgal, which also hints to the skull. Galgalta oscillates back and forth. Panim ve'acher. This teaches us that they represent the fronts and the backs of the Sefirot. An example, Aleph is Keter, Beit is Hokmah, Gimel is Bina, Dalet is Da'as, He is Chesed, Vav is Gevura, Zain is Tiferes, Chet is Netzach, Tet is Hod, Yod is Yisod, Kaf is Malchus. Now, Lamed is the backside of Keter, Mem is the backside of Hokmah, Nun is the backside of Bina, etc. Cryptically, this has been laid down by our sages of times past who have written Ilanot, and yet this full secret has not fully been understood. We can see it here. This sefer here is depicting an Ilan HaGedal, or the Great Tree. It's a scroll of the worlds. We can see the same simsums located, but above all of these simsums, we find Sfirot Shel Olam HaMelbush. We find in the universe of the garment, and specifically this universe of the garment is connected with the Or Ha'ein Sof, the light of the endless. We see it says 231 gates Panim and 231 gates Acher, representing the fronts and the backs. We see they are derived Keter, Hokmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevura, Tifres, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malkuth, etc. Aleph is Keter, Beit is Hokmah, Gimel is Bina, Dalet is Da'as, He is Chesed, Vav is Gevura, Zain is Tiferes, Chet is Netzach, Tet is Hod, Yod is Yisod, Kaf is Malchus. And then we see the backside of Keter, represented by Lamed, Mem is the backside of Hokmah, Nun is the backside of Bina, etc. Thus we can see a physical representation of the aforementioned secret. Now, the key that we want to analyze is the connection between the bottom of Malkuth of the Panim and Lamed of Keter, the backside. The progression continues all the way to Malkuth and then continues from the backside of Keter. What is the purpose and meaning of this continuation, and how are we to understand it? Well, the answer is hidden. And what it explains to us is that this entire tree of the fronts, an example, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zain, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, is located specifically in this one sphera of the Keter, the backside. This means there's a tree of the face in the Keter, this one sphere of the tree of the backside, because this is the connection point. Now, what do we learn from this? Well, we learned that there's a tree of the face in the kether, the tree of the body. This is better understood if we look at the body. The body represents a tree, kether being its head, and inside of this one sphera is another tree, or the tree of the front. An example, the face, pani means face. So we find the two lobes of the brain, the two eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth, etc. We find that there's a tree of the face in the kether, or head, of the tree of the body. This is the secret of the primordial form, or the malbush. Thus we find that the 231 gates, in addition to being the secret of this hard spark, is also the secret of the primordial pattern. An example, the 22 sphirot, the 11 fronts and the 11 backs. And that we'll have a tree of the face located in the kether of the tree of our body. So I ask you, it's written, man is a tree. Analyze your body. Now look at the head, which is kether, and look inside of the head. In your head, is there a tree? Do you see the sphirot? Do you see the lobes of your brain, and your eyes, and your nose, and your ears, and your mouth, etc.? And is it located in this exact spot, particularly? Thus we have the divine form. You can somewhat see a representation of it here, where we have a tree of the body, and in the kether of the tree of the body, we have a tree of the face. And so the 22 letters give us this key, being able to recognize the divine construct, that everything is created through the Lashon HaKodesh. Now that we understand the secret of the 22 letters and Olam HaMalbush, or the divine pattern, the divine form, let's go into some deeper levels. The tree itself is split into 3 columns, right, left, and center. The right column is the secret of white, the left column is the secret of red, and the center column is the secret of yellow. Now, the top of the right column is the secret of whiteness, as it is written regarding Levin, who represents Chokmah. Levin or Livna means whiteness. And over here, the top of the left column is Bina. Bina represents the end of all flesh and is symbolic of the color red, which is the color of flesh. Therefore, Abba, which means father, is with white, and also in the secret of wisdom gives life to its possessor. And Ima, meaning mother, is in the secret of flesh, or red. Now I'll ask you the question, do men produce white? And is the white that they produce in the secret of life? Of course. And so every man produces white, namely from Esau, the reproductive organ. And every woman produces red, mainly from the reproductive organ. You do not need to have faith or belief that men produce white. Neither do you need to have faith or belief that women produce red. The center column is yellow. Do you pee yellow? Is your stomach acid yellow? Is the phlegm in your lungs yellow? Is your teeth plaque, your boogers, your earwax, your eye crust yellow? The entire center body produces yellow. You must begin to see that everything here is a program. We are living inside of a program that was designed, developed, and implemented by the Holy One, blessed be He, using the Lashon HaKodesh. Wake up to the glory. You do not need faith or belief in me that men produce white and that it produces life, or that women produce red, or the center of your body, an example, man is a tree, produces yellow. You do not need to have faith or belief that light is circular, conal, sound is circular and conal. Everything is revolving at the highest level and the lowest levels. There are 22 sets of chromosomes, etc. Let us continue into even deeper levels. At the highest level, which is called Ain, all the letters are in a fixed static state. Now, what is the secret of these letters? They are divided in between 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 elemental letters. For the sake of our conversation here, we'll just enter into the secret of the mother letters. They are Shin, Aleph, and Mem. They're called mother letters because they represent the faculties of speech by which every other letter is pronounced or sounded. Shin corresponds to the tongue and makes the sound thereof. S, sh. Aleph, the throat, and makes the sound thereof. Ah. Mem makes the lips, it makes the sound thereof. And so a combination of tongue, throat, and lips is the basic foundation for the pronunciation of every other letter, by which every other letter is a byproduct of the use of either one or more of these faculties. Let us analyze the first level, that Aleph separates Mem from Shin. This is the secret of Bereshis, for the first letter of Bereshis, or in the beginning, is the letter Beit. Beit as a word is Beit Yud Tav, and in Atbash, Beit Yud Tav. Tav is the letter Aleph, and Yud is letter Mem, and Beit is letter Shin. Therefore, Beit in Atbash is Shin, Mem, Aleph. The three mother letters are thus recognized by the word house, Beit, and the letter Beit of Bereshis. Hence it is written, wisdom built her house. That house, of course, referring to these mother letters, which are used for existence. They're called mother because they create everything. So the first principle is that Aleph separates Mem from Shin. Now, Mem is written one of two ways. It's written in a water form and in a sophist form. When it's written in a water form, it represents waves and looks like waves, like water, from Mayim, meaning water. And its sophist form, like a stone. Shin from Esh, fire, and Aleph from Avir means air. So the principle is that Aleph separates Mem from Shin, where the air separates liquids and solids from the light. Let's see that first phonetically. I stated first that Shin was the tongue, and this can correspond to the sound of high frequency, S. And Aleph was the lungs or the throat, and corresponds to a mid frequency, Ah. And Mem to the lips, a low frequency, Does the mid frequency separate the low frequency from the high frequency? Thus we see that Aleph separates Mem from Shin. First is at the level of sound, and even above this at the level of the light itself. Aleph corresponds to yellow. Therefore, when you smoke, to what color do the walls turn? Shin to red, Mem to blue. Does yellow mix with blue? Of course it creates green. Does yellow mix with red? Of course it creates orange. Therefore, we see that Aleph separates Mem from Shin even before the light. For the light is divided by Aleph separates Mem from Shin. Sound is divided by Aleph separates Mem from Shin. You'll notice that it's above the straight light, which I said were the Sphirot, because in truth, Aleph separates Mem from Shin is even superior to the tree itself. We find that the 3 points of Shin are Keter, Chokmah, Bina. Its base is Da'as. Aleph is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. The 2 top points of Mem are Netzach and Hod, and its base is Yisod. Mem Sophis is Malchus. Thus, the principle I'm revealing, Aleph separates Mem from Shin, is superior to even the tree itself, because the tree is only after its likeness and pattern. Now, how do we see this in reality? Again, when you walk outside, is land and sea separated from the stars above you by the atmosphere? And so we find Aleph separates Mem from Shin in our environment. Carefully contemplate this. Begin to see the glory of the word, the program, all around you. It is written, the earth is filled with his glory. Take a look at the face. Do the eyes that see the light separate from the mouth taking liquids and solids by the nose that breathes the air? Take a look at the planetary structures. Are planets body of solids or liquids and solids separated from centralized star by space? It's 100 billion galaxies. Take a look at the plants. Do plants receive their color from the light and utilize photosynthesis? And are they separated from their roots and the earth drawing water by their leaves converting atmospheric substance? This transcends trillions of forms. The same thing is with the animals, including their body, by which their head, which moves the body via light, is separated from their stomach, processing liquids and solids by their lungs that breathe the air. It is the same thing with all of us. Thus we can understand the secrets of the head of the Atik. Now, these secrets have never been revealed. Regarding this matter and regarding these things, we are actually looking at the secret of God emanating himself. We thus call this the crown jewel, the head and the skull. Now, the hard spark is the skull of the king. It is the skull of the Holy One. And so we find that there are 22 bones in the skull. We do not need to have faith or belief in this matter. We can see clear and concise evidence regarding the things that are being spoken of. Do you have 22 pairs of chromosomes? Was the light restricted at the smallest level? The third skull is a skull. Does that skull contain 22 bones? Because it is the 22 letters. We've seen the divine pattern. Let us go into even deeper levels of the Torah of Atziluth and begin to reveal the divinity in absolutely everything. Regarding the Torah of Atziluth, we learned that Chokmah was the secret of Abba and Ima was the secret of the sphere of Binah. Now it's written in Sefer Yetzirah as an example to have wisdom and understanding and to understand in wisdom. Parabolically, this could mean anything. However, if we apply the principles that have been revealed, to have wisdom and understanding and to understand in wisdom teaches us wisdom or bone in understanding in flesh. Now I ask you the question, is bone held inside of flesh? And to understand in wisdom, is flesh inside of bone? An example, the bone marrow. So wisdom and understanding means bone and flesh, and to understand in wisdom means flesh and bone. Therefore, we begin to see the true levels. And of course, neither faith nor belief is applied to any of the things that I've just revealed. They are self-evident truths. This is why the man was called Et Adam and not just Adam, but Aleph Tav, the Adam. And this is like it was written, flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone, 2 left columns and 2 right columns. Similarly, the woman was taken from his side, etc. Now, when that supernal light had poured in, it eventually struck the heart spark, and from it emerged 7 kings, which are called the 7 kings of Edom. These correspond to the emergence of the first 7 letters that were established. We call them black letters, or vessels. For the aforementioned were called white letters, and so our sages said with white and black letters, the Torah was created. Now, these 7 letters that emerged first come out of the heart spark, and they are called the kings of Edom in High Kabbalah. These 7 holes that are inside of the heart spark or emerge from the heart spark are the secret of the 7 sockets of the skull. Thus, we have 7 holes to our skull in direct conjunction with these 7 sparks that emerge. They, of course, are the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears, and the mouth, totaling 7. What we learn and find from this is that the heart spark, which represents the skull, is formed by 22 bones. Emerging from it are the 7 kings of Edom. We find precisely there are 7 holes in the skull. Just as we looked above, that the heart spark was in the secret of the fronts and backs of the Sefirot, as shown, which gave us the divine pattern, an example, the tree of the face, and the Keter, the tree of the body, as has been made known to you all. It is also the secret of the 2 lobes of the brain, and so the heart spark, concealing the secret of these 2 trees, is likened to the skull, which conceals the secret of the 2 halves of the brain, the skull being 22, just like the heart spark being 22, conceals inside of it the 2 halves of the brain, an example, the fronts and backs, the Sefirot. This, of course, creates the upper eye of the endless, and many people call it the eye of the Arik Einpin. Similarly, the Zohar says 7 runners come out of the eye, etc., specifically the black of the eye. That's because this represents the eye of providence, or the divine eye of creation. We find that the first 3 levels were the endless, the restriction, and the heart spark. These are synonymous with the surrounding endless, an example, the white of the eye, the restriction, an example, the place where color differentiated itself, or the color in the eye, and the heart spark, which represents the pupil in the eye. And so I ask you, the eye is in the exact pattern. We find white, and then we find color, and then we find the pupil. Now, as the surrounding light poured into this place, as I said, it created depth and density, and thus it began to differentiate itself. We learn further that both light and sound are differentiated by frequency. An example, and in addition, we find that scales are alternating notes of 7, and we find that light spectrums are in the secret of 7. So if we pass white light through a prism, obviously we will find 7 lights. There are 7 lights to a rainbow for this reason. And we also find that there are 7 musical notes, all in this secret. Now, when the kings first emerged, We learned that they emerged in the secret of the circular aspect, which was first, and then there's a linear aspect. Well, they fell in the linear aspect. This linear aspect is the secret of the 7 bones in the neck, for there are exactly 7 bones in the neck. Now, this in turn gives us the generalities to the emanation process of the 3 heads of the Atik, which until this point has never been revealed. That being said, consider very carefully all the things that I've said to you. See that you're in the divine image, and wake up in the morning and have this fully in awareness. When you say Modeh ani lefaneka melech chayim shechazarta nishmati barabah munetecha, thank God for your soul coming into the world. Think about the word ani. Consider how it relates to the endless Ein. Consider how the word ani, in its milui or expansion, is the numerical value 231. Consider how the 231 gates are the secret of the supernal form. Now take time, look around you, contemplate very carefully the things I've just said. Let us go into even crazier and loftier levels. Now, as we learned, with wisdom and understanding wisdom, well, this Hokmah and Bina and Hokmah, that is to say, is bone and flesh and bone. We see it clearly. Now again, the central sphera, for example, of the tree is called Adam, but what does that actually mean? Well, the sphere of Tiferet is the secret of the heart, and Adam is Aleph Dam, or air, and Dam, blood. The question then is, where does air mix with blood? Adam. And the answer, of course, is the heart. So the correlation of the sphere of Tiferet with the word Adam isn't coincidental. The Holy One, blessed be He, placed it there to teach us this great secret. Furthermore, Tiferet is the secret of the sun, called Shemesh and Chama. I also mentioned that the center column is yellow. Is the sun yellow? Of course. It's written, his left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. Well, his left hand refers to the left column, and that was red. So all women produce red, as it was explained, and the right column refers to the male, which is white. Under the head, of course, means under Keter Hokmah Bina, that is to say, under these 3 aspects. Thus, the left hand, in example, the flow of the left path being red, is under the head, and his right hand embraces me, and that example is the whiteness. Well, what do we learn from this? We learn that every male produces white and every female produces red, but on a higher level, his left hand is under my, his right hand embraces me, explains why women produce white from the breasts and from red down below. And as I said, wisdom gives life to its possessor, so the whiteness that women produce from their breasts is to sustain life. Even the names of Hashem are not coincidental. For example, the sphere of Tiferet is called Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, but why? Well, as just made known, it's a secret of Adam, or the heart, air, blood. We find that the air and the blood mix in the heart, and Yud-Kei Vav-Kei has 4 letters. Corresponding to these 4 letters are the 4 parts of the heart. Thus, the heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Now, according to the same secret, we find in the story of Genesis, he will bruise the heel and he'll bruise the head. This is analyzing the connection of the 231 gates we discussed earlier in the secret of the tree of the face and the Kether, the tree of the body. Now, assuming that the tree of the body is the serpent, it was cast on its belly to eat the dust. Cast on its belly means sideways, and to eat the dust is because Malkuth is called dust and therefore is still connected at that point. What do we learn from this? Well, we learned that all of the animals have a tree of the face in the Kether, their tree of their body, but they're all sideways. I ask you the question, well, are the animals sideways, and do they have a tree of the face in the Kether, the tree of their body? Of course. You need neither faith nor belief. In fact, the terms faith and belief aren't present in the Torah. He asks us to know him, to have da'as of Hashem, knowledge of him. When looking at the Sfirot, we find that Keter, Hokmah, Bina, and Das are the secret of the Simsumim, respectively. And we find that Malkuth is called the moon, and we find that Yesod is called Kochev, which means planet, sometimes star. And Tiferet is Shemesh or Chama, which is the sun. What do we learn from this? Well, the question then is, do moons circle planets? The answer is yes, of course. And do moons circle planets, circle stars? And do moons circle planet, circle stars, circle black holes? Of course. Moons circle planets, and moons that circle planets circle stars, and moons that circle planets circle stars circle black holes. Now, even all of time is a construct. I'll give you an example. The lights of Bina shine inside of the sun, or Tiferet, and we know there are 365 negative precepts and 248 positive, which are 248 bones and 365 aspects of the spiritual flesh. These 365 lights of Bina shine in Tiferet specifically. Thus, what do we find? Well, we find that there are 365 days to the sun. This is the location of the high priest's breastplate, an example of the place where there are 12 tribes, and we find that the 365 lights shine in the secret of 12 gates, which are the 12 months. We find that Zerainpin is called Ben, or sun, base noon. Beit has a value of 2 and noon is 50, so we find that 365 days are split in between 12 months and divided in between 52 weeks. These 52 weeks are divided between the lower 7 spheros of Zerainpin, which are the 7 days per the week. And these are divided into 24 hours because there's 12 to the sun and there's also 12 to the moon, called the Assembly of Israel, or Knesset Israel. Finally, these are 24 hours, 12 to the sun, 12 to the moon. Ultimately, Zerainpin himself has 10 in each of his spherot, as shown here. That's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And so there's 60 minutes to an hour, which is the greater light. With inside the sphere of Malchus is the same, and these are the lesser light, or 60 seconds to a minute. Thus, the entire spectrum of time is a program, and we are living in it. Returning to my aforementioned aspect that I mentioned regarding all of the animals being sideways, with the tree of the face and the kether, their tree of the body, except all of their bodies are sideways. We also see this, that on the level of Asiya, it relates to our feet. An example, if you were to say the linear tree was the body, and then this sideways tree connected to the base of the body, which would be the feet, are the feet that emanate sideways, and so our feet are sideways. Now, all the sferot of Chokmah are called Yudke Vavke, and regarding the Yudke Vavke, which relates to the sphere of Chokmah, we find that in Asiya, this corresponds to our skeleton, for skeleton is Chokmah. Therefore, we find that the names of Yudke Vavke that correspond in Chokmah are the roots of our skeleton. Thus, Yudke Vavke has a value of 26. And what do we find? Well, it's in Chesed and Gevura. So we find this is the amount of bones in our hands. And we find Yudke Vavke, Netzach, and Hod. And so we find that there are 26 bones in the feet. And we find Yudke Vavke in Tiferes, and so we find this is the value in the chest. And so the entire spectrum of our skeletal structure is exactly according to the divine roots of the Shorosh in the highest world, and we don't need to have faith or belief in that. There are absolutely 26 bones in your feet. Who would argue such a thing? Furthermore, the first letter of Yudke Vavke is the letter Yud, and that's Yud Dalet. Yud Dalet is value 14. Interestingly enough, Yad means hand. So the hand is split into 14 segments. There are 3 to each finger and 2 to the thumb. That's 14. Same thing with the feet, that's 14. And when it comes to the body, upper arm, lower arm, hand, upper leg, lower leg, foot, upper arm, lower arm, hand, upper leg, lower leg, foot, torso, and head. And this totals for us 14 parts to the center as well. Everything here is in the secret of Shorosh, in the secret of roots. And now that we understand the concepts of the tree of the face and the kether of the tree of the body, which is the divine form, we can understand deeper secrets of the Torah of Atziluth. Thus it is written, let the waters under the heavens be gathered to one place. Well, heaven is the sphere of Tiferet, and under heaven is Netzach and Hod. Gathered to one place is Yesod. We derive from this at the Atziluthic level that Yesod is where the water gathers. So the Yesod of your face is your mouth, and so you salivate. And the water gathers into your reproductive organ, and so you urinate. You need not to have faith or belief in that. Now you may know that the water under the heaven is gathered to one place. Is the water gathered in your mouth? Is the water gathered in your reproductive organ? Who would argue against such things? Ultimately, the body is also the secret of the shining mirror, because the goof is Malkut. And so we find the shining mirrors in the secret of opposites. An example, the yesod of the mouth is at an x-axis, and the opposite of an x-axis or shining mirror is a y-axis. And so we find that the reproductive organ is in the secret of the y-axis. There are other great mysteries. We find that the arms bend forwards, and it has the principle of the shining mirror to the legs, so the legs bend backwards. We find that the hands rest in a y-axis, and the opposite of this is the feet at an x-axis, meaning sideways. Now, I could go indefinitely about revealing all of these different supernal mysteries regarding the Torah of Atziluth, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to reveal to you all the secret of the Torah of Atziluth, to understand the nature of the Atzil. At those levels, there's really only assimilation. There is no arguing against it. It would be like arguing against the sun rising or the moon rising. There's only at that level light and truth. The Torah begins to open up in incredibly beautiful ways. As an example, he stretched out the heavens with his right hand. Well, the Sfiroth are categorized by colors, and so Chesed is, out of his right hand goes Chesed. And Chesed is the color blue, and therefore the sky is blue. Things like this. It becomes alive. We need to begin to see the light in each other, to see the divinity in ourselves and the divinity in those around us. Even in the most absurd levels. Chesed is blue, Gevurah is red, and Tiferet is yellow. These are the three legs, and Malchus is associated with the color brown. Well, interestingly enough, blue plus red plus yellow equals brown, and brown being Malchus emerges from Yesod. Well, if we know that's the reproductive organ, that's why our feces is brown. And as we saw, out of his right hand goes Chesed, or loving kindness. Now, there are many more secrets that we'll enter into in our part 2, but let this be an opening. Consider very carefully these levels and how many secrets were revealed. These are but crumbs, droplets. And the point here is not to be better than anyone. The point is to elevate all of us. All of the existence must be elevated. The sparks must be elevated. It is written, the earth is filled with his glory. Consider how beautiful the world would be if we saw the divine in each other. Regarding Aleph separates men from Shin, go outside. Is the land and sea separated from the stars above by the atmosphere? You don't need to have faith or belief in that. To look in the mirror. In your eyes see the light separated from your mouth, taking liquids and solids by your nose that breathes the air, and your sound, which is received to your ears by the air. Consider your body. Does your brain move your body via light separated from your stomach, processing liquids and solids by your lungs that breathes the air? It's every person. Where would hatred be? Where would racism be? The animal's eyes that see the light separated from their mouth, taking liquids and solids by their nose that breathes the air. Their brain, which moves their body via light, separated from their stomach, taking liquids and solids by their lungs that breathes the air. How would we treat the animals, and how would we treat the environment? Every plant receives its color from the light and utilizes photosynthesis, separated from its roots in the earth, drawing water by its leaves, converting atmospheric substance. How would we look at the dinosaurs? They probably didn't look like this, but we see that a long time ago, precisely, Aleph separates men from Shin, every form. Not only the dinosaur, but also the environment and the plant. In fact, if you took the entire human being out of the equation, this light reigns supreme. It transcends over 100 billion galaxies. Every planet is a body of solids or liquids and solids separated from a centralized star by space. And of course, planets are evolving stars, as it was explained. It is above all things. The atom, it's the same thing. Electrons are particles of energy separated from protons and neutrons, aspects of mem, separated by space, air. See this principle in angels. What is this that submits angels? That the angels should also be defined by this, that every heaven should be defined by this, that every Gehinom, that every Sheol, that every Shadam, that every person and every dream. Where would we be? If there ever is a disclosure, it's their truth too. This truth is not just peace to human beings and world peace, it's peace of the entire existence and rejoicing of the entire heaven and earth. So with that being said, this is part one, but a formal declaration for world peace. And may we have it now, by the light of the Holy One, blessed be He, and may it not be by faith, and may it not be by belief, but by knowing, seeing God, not only in ourselves, in each other, see it in the environment, recognize you live within it, see it in time, see it in space, see it all around you, see it in yourself, see it in others. Let us begin the restoration of the breach formally. Share this wisdom with as many who listen, and stay tuned for part two. May we all be gathered as one in the Holy One. Amen. Shalom. Selah.